Daf Yomi, Tractate, Sanhedrin, page 80b, top of the page, with the words El Laman Damar Zeg Goyrim, Mutar Ma'ikele Meimar. But according to the one who says that in a case where this permitted factor and that forbidden factor cause an outcome to be produced, that outcome is permitted, what can be said? Since driving benefit from the bull that sired the offspring is permitted, driving benefit from the offspring should be permitted as well. Ella Amar Ravina. Rather, Ravina says, Ema im ad shlo nigbardina ibra vayalda vlada mutar ve'im ad shlo nigbardina ibra umishe nigbardina yalda vlada asur uvar yerech imohu. Ravina says, amend the Braita and say that the distinction in the Braita is, if before its verdict was finalized, the cow was impregnated and gave birth, its offspring is permitted. If before its verdict was finalized, the cow was impregnated, and after its verdict was finalized, it gave birth, its offspring is forbidden because the legal status of the fetus is not that of an independent entity, rather its status is like that of its mother's thigh. Meaning it's part of it's an expression to say it's part of the mother's body. Therefore, Yerech Imo just means it's part of the mother. Therefore, when the mother is sentenced to death, the offspring is also forbidden once it is born. Kol chavi miso ishma mino mutro ledavar chamur, avi mutro ledavar kal. The Mishnah teaches, all those liable to be executed with different court-imposed death penalties who became intermingled are sentenced to the most lenient form of execution. The Gemara noted, conclude for the Mishnah that an individual who was forewarned for a severe matter is forewarned for a lesser matter. If one is forewarned that if he violates a certain prohibition, then he is liable to be stoned, while in fact he is liable to be executed with a less severe form of execution, the forewarning is effective, and he is executed with the less severe form of execution. That is the reason for the halacha in the Mishnah, that even those liable to be executed with a more severe form of execution are executed with a less severe form of execution. Okay. Amar Rav Yirmiyah Hacha b'mayis kinan. Rav Yirmiyah rejects that proof and says, with what are we dealing here? Kigon Jehut Shihitru Bostam. V'hai Tanahu D'Tanya Shar Chai B'miso Shiv'Torah Ein Min Misei Noisoi Ela Be'eda Ve'edim Mas V'Asra Ad Sheyodiuhu Shehu Chayav Misas Bezdin. Rav Yehuda Omer Ad Sheyodiuhu Be'eze Misa Hu Neherag. Rav Yirmiyah rejects that proof and says, with what are we dealing here? It is a case where the witness is forewarned the individual that if he violates the prohibition, he is liable to be executed without specification of the mode of execution. And this halacha is in accordance with the opinion of this time, as is time of Braita with regard to all the others and those who are liable for the various death penalties stated in the Torah, other than the inciter to idol worship. The court executes them only when the following elements are present: the congregation represented by the court and witnesses, and forewarning just before the defendant commits the transgression, and the court does not execute him unless the witnesses informed the defendant that he is liable to receive the death penalty from the court. Yehoshua says the defendant does not execute it unless the witnesses informed the defendant by which form of death penalty he is to be executed. Tana kama, you gotta be cautious. Yehuda Omer be cautious haresa sha'a haisa. Hayraas shah haisa. Hayraas shah. Based on the statement of Yehuda, it may be inferred that according to the first time, although they must inform him that he is liable to be executed, they are not required to inform him of the specific mode of execution. The Gemara explains the basis For the dispute between the first Tana and Rabbi Yehuda, the first Tana derived forewarning from the incident of the wood gatherer. See Numbers 15:32 through 36, who was executed, even though Moses did not know with which death penalty he was to be executed. Clearly, the mode of execution could not have been included in his forewarning. Yehuda says the execution of the wood gatherer was a provisional edict because of the word of God. The halacha throughout the generations cannot be derived from it. Haniskalin bisrafin masni Yecheskel Rami Pere Hanisrafin biniskalin b'Shimon Omer Yedon Miskila Shesarich Chamor. The Mishnah teaches in a case where those who are liable to be stoned were intermingled with those who are not liable to be stoned. Rabbi Shimon says they're all sentenced to be executed by stoning, and the rabbis say they are all sentenced to be executed by burning. Yehoshua taught a different version of Rami to his son. In a case where those who are liable to be burned were intermingled with those who are liable to be stoned, Rabbi Shimon says they shall all be sentenced to the execution by stoning, as burning is a more severe form of execution. Deruba Ruskalinu Ella Hechi Etinehen. Rabbi Yehuda, son of Yehoshua, said to him, Rabbi Yehuda, said to him, Father, do not teach it in that manner, because it is difficult to understand. Why does Rabbi Shimon teach that the reason is specifically that burning is a more severe form of execution? Stoning derived this halacha that they are stoned for a different reason. The principle with regard to a mixture is to follow the majority, and in the case of the majority of the intermingled group is liable to be stoned. Rabbi Yehoshua asked Yehuda, rather, how then shall I teach it? Yehuda said you should teach. In a case where those who are liable to be stoned are intermingled with those who are liable to be burned, where the majority is liable to be burned, Rabbi Shimon says they shall all be sentenced to execution by stoning, as burning is a more severe form of execution. Rabbi Yehoshua, his father asked, if so, say the latter clause of the Mishnah, and the rabbis say they shall all be sentenced to execution by burning, as stoning is more severe of execution. If so, derive the halacha that if they are burned, because in this case the majority of the intermingled group is liable to be burned, not because stoning is a more severe form of execution. Hasam Rabbanan hu dekame le Shimon. They deduct down and say Chamura la Skila Chamura. Rabbi Yehuda answered, there is the latter clause. It is the rabbis who say to Rabbi Shimon, according to you, who say that burning is a more severe form of execution than stoning. The fact that the majority is liable to be burned does not warrant the execution of the entire group by burning, since the minority was sentenced to stoning. Which is more lenient in your opinion? That is not so, as stoning is a more severe form of execution, and that reason is extraneous, as in this case, they are burned because the majority of the group is liable to be burned. Amar Shmuel Yehuda Shinina. When his narrative was heard, Shmuel says to Yehuda, long tooth one.